Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today our movie in the middle is A Quiet Place Part 2, directed once again by John Krasinski and starring Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmonds, Noah Jupe, and Cillian Murphy. The sequel to the 2018 horror film once again follows the Abbott family as they reach out to other people who have survived in this post-apocalyptic world, now knowing a possible solution to the end of it all. And once again, these creatures that are after them, if they hear them, they hunt them. I was so excited to be back in the theater for this one. I know I've seen a couple other movies in the theater already, but this was the one I was really excited for because this was the one that was probably the first of this year that I actually got to see on the big screen that I was anticipating all the way from last year. And it was great to just be able to buy a ticket for a movie on its opening night, go in the theater with everybody else who has not watched this movie yet, and just experience the horror, the thrill of this sequel to an awesome movie that came out in 2018. It was just one of the most inventive horror movies I've seen, and honestly just one of the most inventive and just well-directed movies I've seen. So I was super excited going into this one. Starting off with some of the highs, the acting once again is so well done. Emily Blunt, Noah Jupe, Millicent Simmonds, they just really kill it again, especially the kid actors. They really grow up in the story and in their acting in this one. They do such a great job. I love their chemistry. I love the family's chemistry as a whole. And Cillian Murphy did an amazing job. I actually just saw 28 Days Later, which is a post-apocalyptic nightmare movie that he stars in, and it was kind of cool to see him sort of reprising this role in helping a family in a post-apocalyptic nightmare again, but he's a lot more reserved, he's a lot quieter in this one, and it's interesting because you almost at a certain point don't know, is he good? Is he all on the up and up? You're not really sure. And there's still the same amount of emotion, the same amount of heart as in the first one. It really lets you connect and love this family and just really want to see the best for them. John Krasinski said that the first movie was a love letter to his kids. And in this one, you still see that. It's just the tight-knit family heart is still there. And you see that especially in a lot of these quieter moments, a lot of these moments when they're, really in trouble and they're hiding out, and there's all these very intense emotions. But I have to say, aside from those quiet moments, the action, the scenes that are really intense are really intense. When we get to those moments, it's like holding your breath quite literally for a solid 10 minutes, and it's like super suspenseful. And a lot of the action and how they get out of situations is incredibly clever as ever, and honestly really cool. Like, I definitely clapped a few times. Specifically one action scene, which isn't really a spoiler because it's in the trailer, is at the beginning of the movie they show what happened on day one of all of this starting, when the aliens actually invaded. It's so good because it slowly builds up and then it just happens. And you just get to feel what it was like when just chaos just happened and nobody knew what was going on, but these things just came in and started killing people. This is how much of a badass Emily Blunt is. There is a scene in the trailer where she's backing up in a car and she has a bus going like 40 miles an hour after her. And that was the first take, and she had no prior preparation for it. She said, I just want to do it so it has a real authentic feel to it. And she did it. And my brother told me a couple days ago that in the first movie, when she gets in the bathtub and has this incredibly intense scene, I won't say what it is if you haven't watched it yet, but she has this incredibly intense scene. She did it in one take and then went to lunch. Badass. The biggest low I have for the movie, which is very hard to say because I don't want to have any lows for this movie, but I do have a few. The biggest one is its pacing, which is oddly enough almost exactly the same as the first one, where the first one you have 45 minutes, it's an hour and a half, so the first half of it is slower, more build up, and then the second half is all action when it finally, that inciting incident, or whatever you want to call it, 45 minutes in, happens. In this one, it's sort of the same, where you have first half of it is a lot slower, and then there's a lot of action after. The problem in this one is that in the first one, we can use that, we need that 45 minutes to set up the whole world and to meet this family. In this one, we already know them. And besides meeting another character, Cillian Murphy's character, and having just a little bit more exposition, there's not much else that we need to have set up. So it feels for the first little bit like you're like, okay, let's go. Like, I like these quiet moments, but it's dragging on just a little bit. And structurally, which sort of goes along with the pacing, it was a little weird because it felt like they gave so much time to these little moments, which is wonderful, these character moments. But then when we finally get to the action, at least in the first one, there were a few different moments of action. It felt like in this one, there was one big action scene, a little bit of a pause, and then the end. And just like in the first one, it ends. And you're almost like, I get it. Like, anything else would be redundant. And that was beautiful in the first one. And I love that John Krasinski does that because he knows how to direct. He knows how to leave you wanting more, and he knows how to leave it without repeating anything else or showing anything else that doesn't already need to be said. But in this one, it's like I almost would have preferred just a little bit more. I love both ending shots, don't get me wrong, but I would have preferred just a little bit more because there was just a few things we wanted more closure on, and or we just wanted to see a little bit more. It just feels like it just ends. And you're like, I didn't even get to see, these people come together or see how they reacted to it. So it almost, in this instance, leaves you wanting more in a bad way. Not horrible, but, I think an extra 15 minutes for this one actually would have done it wonders, to be honest with you. This movie reminds me, weirdly enough, of Incredibles 2. In this one, they have such a goal. Some characters are given more to do than others, and it feels like some of the other characters, they had to, find things for them to do, and while they're very important, it doesn't feel like they were trying to, fill the script a little bit, Weirdly enough, it feels like some characters, even though there's 4 of them, 4 main characters total, it feels like half of them, which are some of the main characters we've seen from the first one, don't even get as much attention, which is really weird. And especially considering there is more of a tangible goal in this one besides just survive. Another thing I was slightly let down by is that there's an element to this that they sort of promised in the trailer that doesn't necessarily come up. And that's the element that's really in most apocalyptic worlds, is you have the threat itself, and then you have the human element of human antagonists who are opposing you because of this threat. Like in The Walking Dead, you have, Negan, who he's not a walker, but he is a threat. In this one, they were really emphasizing this whole, a lot of people aren't good people now. And it comes up in one scene, and that's it. We only see one scene where there's people who are just not good people, and it's like, wow, these people have gotten hardened by this time and they're really dangerous now, and that's it. And they don't talk at all. And so it's really weird that they really emphasized that, and we thought that there was going to be a little bit more of that, and then they just kind of were disposable. It made for a really interesting scene, don't get me wrong. It was a really cool scene. I would have liked more of that more human fear, that more human antagonism and conflict. And lastly, this is more of a smaller thing that almost was kind of in the first as well, but there's a couple world-building flaws, mostly with the sound, and sometimes creatures are there when there wasn't really a sound made, and it's like, how would they have known that they were there? And sometimes they'll make a little bit of a bigger sound, and the creatures don't come for a while. In the first one, you made, any semblance of a sound that wasn't, crunching a leaf, and that thing was there. In this one, it takes them a little bit longer, but it felt like they sacrificed a little bit of the actual world rules for the plot this time. Overall, A Quiet Place Part 2 is still a thrilling ride. It is incredibly emotional, incredibly intense. There are moments that really... I'll put it this way. If you struggle with asthma, just know that there's a scene in this that's probably going to freak you out a little bit, or at least just make you really stressed. It might have just been the fact that I was in the theater and watching it, on the big screen, but it was still an amazing experience. I mean, the sound design's incredible, the acting was amazing, and it was just still a really awesome movie to watch. Incredibly well directed once again by John Krasinski. Another tight, suspenseful, heartfelt drama and horror that honestly ends incredibly, because not only is it awesome in terms of the actual action, but in terms of what it means about the family. I thought it was an incredible juxtaposition that I did not even expect coming or think was even necessary, but I thought it was just a wonderful thing to do with the script and the characters at the end. I'm going to give A Quiet Place Part 2 a 3.5 out of 4. Tell me what you thought of A Quiet Place Part 2. Did you like it better than the first? Did you think it was equal to the first? What did you think of the characters? What did you think of the plot? And were you able to see it in the theater? And just tell me what your experience was like going back again for, the first or second or third time after a whole year, because it's just nice to be back at the movies, to be honest. Leave all that in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.